If you're tuning in right now, you happen to be watching the world's truest source for hip hop news, black culture, sports, and of course the best reaction videos on the net. I'm talking about Kofi's Universe. If you haven't already subscribed, it's your chance to hit that button now before I hit this blunt. Bada.
YouTube salute, man. We have a special guest that's joining the channel today, man. It's an honor and privilege for this artist, rapper, my subscriber, comment moderator, Columite, put me up on Illmac, and I was just amazed by raising the bars. I kept listening to his raising the bars, and I was just blown away. Y'all might have known him through his battle raps. You might know him through his music, but you know, born in Portland, Oregon, we have Immaculate, aka Illmac. Welcome to Kofi's Universe.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Definitely appreciate it.
My pleasure, my pleasure, my pleasure. Before we start, I just want to say, how are you doing in general with everything that's going on in the world? Just want to ask how you're doing.
I mean, I'm good for the most part. I don't know, I feel like we're all kind of experiencing some growing pains as far as just the state of the world and taking it in, you know what I mean? But I mean, for the most part, as far as, pandemic and quarantine, like that's my everyday life anyway. It's like I live next to the studio. I'm like, I don't leave but to go to the grocery store and shit anyway. So I feel like the world is just adapting to my lifestyle as of now. You know what I'm saying?
That's right. That's right. I've told people I was born with social distance. So,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
it's really nothing. You know, like you said, going to the grocery store and running your errands, the things you need to do. But other than that, though, it doesn't really bother me. But
Obsessively washing my hands, all that shit, that comes naturally. So
yes,
I
yes,
was built for this, you know what I mean?
yes, I was raised like that. But I'm
Yeah.
glad you're doing good. Everything,
Yeah.
good on my
How
end.
about you?
So that's something I have to check on because, like, at the end of the day, you might be an artist, you might be a rapper, but you still are a human being. So I care
Yeah,
about that. So.
yeah. We're all human.
Um,
Definitely.
so I want to start off Portland, Oregon. I mean, I love Portland. I've been there several times. The food, the people, the atmosphere. How was it growing up in Portland?
Ah, man. I love this city. It has like especially it's like they say that you learn more about where you're from by seeing other places, by traveling. So being blessed enough to be able to travel around the world in different states, different countries, makes me appreciate the city even more. Um, every city has its flaws, but it would growing up, man. It looking in retrospect, the city is unique in a lot of ways and has a lot of music. Like it's big on art and music and everything. So I think in a way, even indirectly, that definitely helped shape who I am and my interests, as far as musicality. So I'm definitely grateful for that.
Okay, okay. Are you a Portland Trailblazers fan?
Oh yeah, all day. I mean, I'll be like, to keep it 100 too. Like, I grew up playing basketball. Um, you know, Luckily I became a rapper, or else I was gonna be in the NBA. So, uh, but like, it was author. Then I wanted to be in the NBA. Then I was like, all right, I'll pivot over here to music real quick.
Okay.
But yeah, I love the last few years though. Like, I've kind of shied away from watching just sports in general. Like, but I will say this season I actually decided to tune back in. Was watching every game, and then the pandemic hits. I'm like, as soon as I tune back in.
Mhm. Yeah, I like Portland. I've always, had a thing with Portland as far as the Trailblazers, their team.
Hmm.
I felt they had some type of like roadblocks after in the '90s and maybe the early 2000 when they played the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals and
Yeah.
they blew that 15, 17 point lead. That kind of hurt my heart. I'm from LA, but I'm a Clipper fan, not because of the team they have now. I've always been a Clipper fan,
Mm-hmm.
but I love, Portland, just who they are. I mean, I know they had a lot of draft, they drafted a lot of players, and sometimes the players maybe didn't. pave out to be who they were supposed to be. Like you had
Yeah,
Greg
pass on
Oden,
Jordan for Sam
yeah,
Bowie, then Greg Oden, could have
Brandon
had
Roy,
KD out that year. Like,
yeah,
oh, it's just all bad. Even this last year, with injuries, you know, with Nurkic and Collins and Rodney Hood, and it's crazy, man. But I don't know. That's one thing about the pandemic and the season being delayed. I'm like, at least the team's getting healthier, you know.
yeah,
Might come back to a full healthy team, be able to go out there and actually do something.
yeah. We're definitely gonna be seeing that soon, starting next week. You know, that's when the season kicks
Yeah,
off
yeah, it's crazy,
in the
man.
bubble. So we all be watching all the teams. But
Like the
let's
no crowd. It's like the rooftop battles, but NBA.
yes, yes, you're so right about that. So Illmac, I know that's short for immaculate. What
Mhm.
made you start rapping? You know, what was your influence of to say, you know what, I want to take this to another level?
I've been like, uh, I've had like a pretty good relationship, a pretty close relationship with hip hop since I was like super young, sort of by happenstance. I've talked about this before, but like my grandmother Donna, she got one of those cassette holders, like where you just put a bunch of cassettes in it, at a yard sale, and it was full of cassettes. I think I was like 4 years old, and there's mostly like country western and shit. But like one of the tapes was a mixtape or a tape called Jammin'. I don't know if it was a compilation or what, but it had Run DMC, Curtis Blow,
Ooh,
Roxanne, Sugar Hill Gang, like all the classics on there. And this would have been like 90, 91. Even it was a little old, a lot of the joints were a little old school even at that point. But I was really young and I used to listen to her Walkman, and that was like my tape. So I'd always bump that and go around singing like, you talk too much. You never shut up. I said you like Run DMC. Like that was like my joint. And I used to like mimic I'd be like, you know, little 4 year old me, like, look, I'm rapping and be spitting in my hand, like thinking I was trying to rap, but I was really trying to beatbox, but I was just so young. I was just mimicking what I heard, you know? Um, and then that sort of planted the seed later on and growing up, living with I had like four uncles and living with the one who's only 11 years older than me, who would be listening to Pac and watching MTV and everything. And I naturally gravitated towards that, you know? So, um, hanging out like with the homies and shit, like I was sort of, like they all rapped and were like, yo, you should rap. My homie Deshante is actually the one who was like, yo, like you should rap, bro. You're always out here, like you're quick witted, you love writing. I was hell into poetry and all that shit. And he's like, it's natural. I'm like, that's you, like that's your lane. Like I'm not a rapper. And then I don't know, I don't remember the exact circumstance, but one day I was like, you know what, I'm gonna rap. Yeah, I'll do that. And I like wrote like a little 4 bar rhyme or whatever, and I was sort of just the beginning. I couldn't put it down at that point.
okay. Well, you here now. You doing your thing, and I'm happy you here. I love the music. Like I said, some of the music I've heard so far from you. Your freestyles are impeccable, and I just listened and I did a reaction to your newest freestyle, "Fire the Booth." You murdered
Oh,
that.
I gotta peep that. I gotta peep
You
that.
murdered that. That right there. Woo!
I
Please dive in. I was like, because I didn't know about Fire in the Booth until I started my channel. Then the people from the UK would say, Fire in the Booth, Fire in the Booth. So I learned from Akala, Getz, Low Key, Red Street to Avelino. So when I started to see West Coast or maybe US
Yeah,
artists on Fire in the Booth, it made me very happy. To so far, I think you maybe as far as some of the top U.S. artists on the Fire in the Booth. I think you and Griselda, like I said, I've seen other people. Don't get me wrong, on Fire in the Booth from the U.S., but you killed that. You killed
yeah.
that
I
right there.
think
I just want
what
to
like
let you know, man. For
Niggas
real,
was
I was
on
very
there. I think.
happy.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah. Um, yeah, they reached out to me and I definitely was super hyped on it. Like I got raised in the bar and then like the little studio freestyles I do. And that's fun to me, you know. That's like my music doesn't all isn't like I'm experimenting and growing with that, right? But as far as like punchlines and all these things, like battle fans want a certain type of brand. I'm not always in that mode when it comes to musically, but Raising the Bar was sort of created for it to still kind of fill that lane, you know, and that's the same type of vibe that Fire in the Booth has. Cause I was like, I don't know how long I want to be battling, to be honest. As long as it's fun, I'm gonna be doing it, as long as I'm inspired. But I'm like, in the event of me taking breaks or whatever, I still want the outlet for that sort of competitive, you know, bar display. That comes from more of like a competitive sports point of view with how I write, you know, more so than my music. And I still wanted that outlet and to sort of feed those fans who gravitate towards that. So that naturally kind of fit in. Fire in the Booth, the Sway universe, Sway in the Mornings, the you know, Funk Flex freestyles, like all those things. I think I would love to touch those platforms as well, you know.
Oh yes. Well, we're gonna speak there into existence, so you will get there.
Right.
I already know you're gonna get there because, like I
Exactly.
said, I love your wordplay, your bar Smith. So I'm gonna give you that. I already know. Trust me, these people have given you props on my channel, and like I said, and people that
That's
didn't
what's
know
up.
who you were when they
Yeah.
saw me react to your, certain
Yeah.
songs, they're like, "Wow, who's this person?" So salute to you from that.
Appreciate that, man.
Oh,
Likewise.
my pleasure, my pleasure. When you're in the zone and you're getting ready to like record a song, maybe put out an EP or mixtape, what, is there a certain like, something you do? Maybe like I need to have my certain coffee, snacks, certain, music on.
Yeah, I mean, it depends, you know, different, the inspiration it ebbs and flows and it strikes at different times. What I do a lot is sort of like in the morning, I'll have a certain feeling. Even this morning, I wrote a little bit, and it was the same thing. I wake up, and it's like I feel like energized already, and it's like, okay, I need to write. I do make my coffee. I go sit in my little office, you know what I mean? And I put beats on, and then if nothing strikes me immediately, I'll put on like a music documentary or of like, you know, an influential artist or whatever, and just to kind of nurture the creativity and be inspired seeing someone else, another artist's process, you know. So that like is sort of probably the most regular ritual, I would say. A lot of like late nights randomly at 3 a.m. getting an idea and, you know, not finishing the song, get in there and record, not even finishing the song to like 7 in the morning and shit. But that's probably the most regular sort of ritualistic thing as far as the creative process, sort of waking up in the morning, the coffee, music, opening the windows, and just kind of trying to catch the wave of inspiration.
Okay, okay, I like that. I like that. What about favorite scholars, heroes growing up? Do you usually maybe like read certain their literature? Like, maybe I need to read, touch on this person. This person right here has, what inspired me that quick. Maybe I can see something they talking about, and I can take that concept and apply it to what I'm trying to do right now.
Yeah, there's a lot. Off top, like the first couple names that come to mind are you know, pulling from different and, you know, eras in time completely. Like you got like Pac was a major influence in, you know, aside from the people around me, like someone who I idolized that kind of pushed me into writing. You know, he was a poet as well, and there was a lot of things that really struck me about Pac at a very young age. I started rapping when I was 11. That was when I
Mm.
wrote my first rhyme, and I was a gangster rapper until until I was like 15. You know, just mimicking what I heard, but Pac definitely struck me just for everything he would speak on. And also like I didn't realize it at the time. But the way like you'll hear, you know, deep messages and him, you know, talking black power messages and things about freedom and oppression in a party song, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Because that's just who he was, and it doesn't come through as like you're being sold something. This is my, you know, my equal rights song. This is my club song. It wasn't fractured like that. It was very much just him being him, and there's something contagious when you see somebody just being themselves, being the message, you know. So that, I think, in retrospect, looking back, was something that struck me. And then pulling from a different era, someone whose writing inspires me is Khalil Gibran,
Okay.
um, Lebanese poet, author, philosopher, um, from like late 1900s, and just something about his writing and his poetic style like really strikes that chord in me. And I've taken actually a lot of concepts, and sort of repurposed them and filtered them through, you know, the modern era, and my brain and hip hop music. Even on Raising the Bar 2, the very end of it, there's all these like metaphors about giving, and it's like about, you know, the tree doesn't think who's worthy of getting the fruit, but you know, all these things providing. I can't remember the exact quote, but all that's kind of all conceptually really borrowed from like Khalil Gibran. It's like a chapter on giving, I think it is, in the Prophet, and sort of inspired by that, you know. So those are like probably the first two names that come to mind, you know.
Okay, okay, thank you. No, I appreciate that. I just want
Mhm.
to kind of know because I'm always um, intrigued to know like how the artists, they take their time because we see the final product, we see the cake baked, but we don't
Right,
know
right.
what ingredients were put into the bowl. So I care about
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Not all your secrets, but just enough to know. 'Cause that's
Little
private.
thing.
Just enough to know how do you get started because you have a fan base out here. And just to let you know, some of the top countries that's on my analytics are, of course, the U.S. We have the UK, Ghana, South Africa, New Zealand, Brazil, Finland, Barbados, Canada, Mexico. Those are some of the top countries. So
That's dope.
those subs on my channel, plus it will be non-subs, will be tuned in just to let you know, so you can
That's
kind of
really
know
dope.
your fan base and some of your favorite, um, some of the subs on my channel that support you and like you the most. They're from Toronto, Switzerland, and I believe like Russia, and of course the U.S. So those are the top four countries. It could be more. I just can't think off top. But
Right,
I
right,
have, like I
right.
said, a special comment moderator. His name is Colomite, and he put me up on game about you. So he's gonna be
That's
very happy.
dope.
He's like, oh my
Shout
God,
out,
Illmac.
shout out Calamite. You
For
said
sure.
Calamite?
Yes, Colomite.
Salute, salute to that man for
Yeah,
sure.
he's an upcoming rapper MC too. So I know looking at this would probably motivate him and inspire him maybe to sharpen his tools and do everything he needs to do on his
Yeah,
end. So
that's what's up. Hell
you
yeah.
never know. Y'all might be doing a track later in the future, so you never know.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah. Now, who is Illmac away from the microphone?
Um, I mean, Uncle Ill, as my as my niece Aaliyah would say when she was really young. You know, she already had an Uncle Greg, and so it made it easier to call me Uncle Ill. You know, for the most part, you know, same person. I'm probably more goofy even than you might see. Weird even like my like there's a little just dumb trolling that shit I'll do where my girl's like, if your fans could see this, like, what do you? Well, I don't know, like, but you know, for the most part, I just same thing, same facets. You know what I mean? Just maybe just a little less guarded, a little bit. Still got the you know, Aquarius distance, but is I've been told,
Okay.
but yeah, I mean, love, you know, I feel like I don't read as much lately. I need to get back on my Grizzly, but you know, love reading, and I play a lot of Call of Duty lately. Ever since it was like the pandemic, like even though I already lived in isolation, um it was almost like a snow day. Like where it's like I don't gotta go to school. I wasn't going to school anyways, but all right, I can spend even more time playing Call of Duty then. And yeah, I'm gonna start my stream and stuff like that. But I don't know. I feel like I give a lot of put a lot of myself in my art, you know.
Okay. Okay.
Try to be
Good.
transparent as possible.
Okay. I like that. I like that. I'm glad, you honest, uncle, who you are, sense of humor. We can't always be serious for the rest of our life. We gotta have that balance,
Yeah,
and I appreciate you telling us that. Thank you. Thank you.
yeah.
So, what do you think about the current state of hip hop right now in 2020?
Um, you know, I'm gonna be 100% honest. I haven't been listening to a lot of music. I've been really in the bubble of just listening to my music, and because I dropped this project spring, and then I'm like finishing up my next project summer, and it's gonna go from there. And so like when I'm in a sort of a constant process of creating. I live right next door to my producer in the studio, Chase Moore. Um, but when I'm like honed in on finishing a project, I sort of distance myself away from other music a little bit more. I think it's to not draw as much inspiration from others and be more focus more on my sound than anything. Um, but outside of that, on in a general sense of like, I'm not one of those like MCs that's like these mumble rappers and commercial garbage and the underground and you got to be lyrical miracle on every like I'm not a there's a place and time I think for for every vibe and everything. And I definitely listen to mainstream artists, maybe even probably a lot more than underground artists, but even those type of concepts are sort of becoming more and more obsolete, with the internet and musicians and rappers and all these having direct connection with the fans. Like those, that line is more blurred than it's ever been as far as like mainstream and underground and vibe. I think hip hop is thriving more than it's ever been just because of that correlation that the fans and um, musician can have directly.
Yes, yes. You telling the truth about that. And like I said, I try to listen to, of course, the mainstream, but I also, like I said, underground. So that's always been me. So it always makes me feel good because when it's people that's underground, I always call them like underdogs, but they're the ones that they feel like you're gonna get a lot of respect from people that they know like what this who they are. They always get some of the best respect, and some people even when they say top five and top 10, they go to that category and go get them.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so you're definitely right about that. Now I know so much has been going on since this year. We in July already. The passing of Kobe Bryant hurt the world. You know, the start of the pandemic, the protests, the movements. Globally. I mean, what is your viewpoint of the pandemic, and then we moved right into the revolts? How did you feel about that when you saw all that going on?
I mean, um, I think that I mean, first and foremost, obviously I think the pandemic and the magnitude of it and how it would affect everything from the economy, microscope down to the individual, and being on lockdown and quarantine and seeing that it's not just people in another part of the world like this, like we don't a lot of times as like Americans or as people in general uh take things seriously until we experience the inconvenience of it. We can see people around across the globe dealing with some, and there's a certain a filter of like almost like it's not real. We know it's real, but we don't identify with it as much until we're faced with it and the consequence. And that was crazy to see. And then I think that also, and I know I've seen a lot of people speak on this, sat us down to have to deal with things, right? So even I know people, family members in my life who, because of the more free time they have as far as work schedules altering and not being able to go out and distract themselves of having to deal with real life traumas that maybe they're able to distract themselves from, you know, day to day, whether it be working, going out, decompressing, doing all these things, and then not having those things available has really sat us down to like, okay, now we actually have to like sort through this, and there's all these feelings coming up. You couple that with, you know, the murder of George Floyd, and, you know, Ahmaud Arbery, and all the Breonna Taylor, and all these things. And, you know, say if we weren't sat down in quarantine and lockdown and having to really deal with that and the emotions associated with that, it might not have happened as far as like these protests and stuff, just because we're able to distract ourselves. But to be able to healthily sit down and look at these problems, you know, I think that is a contributing factor to like, okay, like this isn't okay. It hasn't been okay at all for a very long time, but now is a time where we're facing it and having to deal with it. And I think that it's I mean, obviously it's hard work, but it's a good thing as far as like it's growing pains that I feel like the world is sort of going through right now, you know. The discomfort, but having to really sit down and look at these systemic, you know, systems of injustice that have been the standard for so long, and question things like, you know, monuments dedicated to slave owners and dedicated to, you know, Confederate Army, you know, sergeants, leaders in general, and question like, okay, what are we, you know, really about? Like, what are we promoting? What, it's good to know your history, and there's museums and things for that, but like, what, you know, what do these things represent? So I don't know. I think we're definitely going through growing pains at the time, and while it's hard work, even just emotionally to deal with, you know, I think that it's a healthy process, you know.
Yes, yes, you're definitely right about that, and especially you touched on the monuments and you know, statues and stuff like that. You know, people still out here be like, why are those statues still standing? Like, well, when
Yeah.
you think about it, that's part of their history of the oppressor of what they want. So that's why I tell people, when you're fighting a system, you're not fighting usually the people. You're fighting a system that's going to actually make sure these things stay in place, even when they pass away. And these, you know, this systematic racism has been, you know, it's a machine running by itself.
Yeah.
So you don't
Yeah.
care who's coming in. The machine, all we don't
Right.
got to touch nothing. Everything is
Yeah.
good to go. So that's why I
Yeah,
tell
the
people, if we're going to do
people are
something,
plugged into it, but it's self-sustaining, you know,
yes,
to where both on the oppressor and the oppressed side, you become a willing participant, you know, when you show a group of people who this is who you like, it becomes self-manifesting, you know
yes,
what I mean? It's crazy. Yeah. Um, so all those things are definitely relevant. People are like, oh, like it's just yeah, it symbolizes so much more. So it is good to really be sitting down and having these discussions, and you know, ultimately taking down those nods and homages to oppression, you know, because that's what a lot of those things represent.
yes, especially in the U.S. You know, when you think about the indigenous people, you know, genocide, you know, losing their country, land. Then you think about Africans coming over here, you know, free labor. But when we have these open talks, no matter who it is, you have the discomfort of certain people. They feel like, I don't want to talk about that. Let's ignore that. It's over with. But the experience is something they can never experience because it didn't happen to them. Because even, I know you probably heard recently, Nick Cannon was fired from Viacom CBS over an interview he had with Professor Griff. So he came out, apologized, you know, so he can, you know, save himself. There was a lot of people kind of going back and forth. Some people actually emailed me saying, I think he was wrong for apologizing. What I told some people is just like, you know what? I respect Nick Cannon, but at the same time though, they have you by the collar. That's their structure. So when you're dealing with white structure in that position, they have you by the collar. So at the time, you know, and this is not even a shot on Nick Cannon. This is more like when you in the moment of doing something like, okay, I can't be touched. I'm making this amount of money. They ain't gonna say nothing, but they can always sit you down and say, listen, no, you're not gonna do that, regardless. And to me, this is my personal opinion. I think they use Nick Cannon more as an example because what's going on right now, like anybody else say something, we will take your platform away too. So
Right, like Colin Kaepernick, and
yes,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah, it's again, it's like a symbol of this is what happens, when you go against it. And I mean, Viacom, like, there's so many crazy things about that. Like in general, like if I'm not mistaken, Viacom like is owned like a lot, like some vast percentage, like 80% of the shareholders with Viacom are also invested in Vanguard Corp, like privatized prisons and shit. So we know what the motive of controlling, when you control entertainment, news outlets and all these things, and also have a vested interest in keeping prisons populated, what you're just not going to use one tool to serve the other to benefit from? Like, of course you are, so Viacom in general is we know what they stand for. I don't know, like I didn't I've seen like headlines and tweets about it, but I didn't like watch the interview or see exactly what was said, so I don't know exactly. But I mean, just off rip, I'm like, oh yeah, Viacom,
Uh,
like we know what they stand for.
yeah. All he said was, like I said, I'll summarize it up. Professor Griff was talking about, the African Holocaust. And then Nick Cannon jumped in, and what he said was, historically, Europeans have went to around the world, rape, plunder, colonizing. This is something they have done. No other ethnicity has done what they've done. That's all he said. He didn't use anti-Semitic and disrespected the Jews, as far as over there in Europe, in Germany. He didn't disrespect them at all. He never said nothing about that. So when they said he was being that, I was like, that's why I think a lot of people were mad. Like, why are you apologizing? You never said nothing. But I think it was just holding him by the strings. Ventriloquist is like, yo, we want you to apologize because of this, and this, and this. And now I guess he's getting ready to have some Jewish rabbi come on his podcast on Cannon's class and going to actually educate him. And it's kind of weird as what he's been doing. Now it's like this big change. They have like the say so. Okay, he comes on your podcast now if you want to stay, going. If not, we'll blackball you, whatever we'll do to put you out, to put you out. So I just felt that even when I saw that, and like I said, no, and it's no disrespect. I'm not even trying to point at Nick Cannon. There's several other people. Al Iverson, that's my favorite basketball player of all time. He put up a picture with Farrakhan, and it was on his Instagram. I maybe could have been on Twitter too, but I saw on Instagram. The next day, he took it down and came out and apologized. Like, oh, I apologize to the Jewish community. I'm like, okay, what? See, this is what I'm talking about. People are not disrespecting. They're just showing a picture of Farrakhan or like Deshaun Jackson. I don't know if you know too much about that. When he actually put the meme up of Hitler, what Hitler said about if the Negroes in the United States, America ever wake up, it's over. Then they made him come out and apologize, say he was wrong. Now he has to go to the Jewish Holocaust Museum now and get like some type of education. It's like it's weird what they're doing. They don't want them, standing for something. And you see a person like Kaepernick, and I salute him because he didn't care. He's like, y'all can take my money. I'm going to do something, for the better good. Now, he might not ever be, compensated for the stuff he's doing, and I understand that because that's beyond some millions. But I will always, and I'm going to look at him as being up there. He might not be on the level of Muhammad Ali, but he'll be somewhere under that as far as him risking his life and saying, I'm going to do this for the people. Because I think that's like a big step to take. Because everybody can't be no freedom fighter like that on the front line.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, when I look at like the Muhammad Ali's and I put like Muhammad Ali and Pac, like these those two names are like very synonymous to me. You
Yes.
know, for one, the era I grew up in, um, you know, looking back on what I was inspired by. But you're talking about two, you know, two people in their respective field that are at the top of their game and, you know, stand for something more than, you know, themselves and for something larger and use that platform to champion a greater cause, you know, social justice, equality, and black power and these things, you know, like Ali lost his prime years of
Yeah.
his career, you know, just because of, you know, not saying no. Like, I'm not going to go to Vietnam and fight your war. Which look at how history looks at the U.S. being involved in Vietnam and what we did over there now, like not favorably. And so, and the same thing with Pac and how he uses his platform, and that's why there's a certain legend status that you know, I personally, I feel like a lot of people associate with them because, you know, it was a lot of self-sacrifice. You could tell that's who they were, and it was greater than just being the best at something. It was then taking that and turning it into something bigger. And yeah, I think that you're right with, you know, Kaepernick kind of falling in that same, so in that same vein of sacrificing his career essentially to stand for something bigger. And you know, that was also a big, I think, a big chunk of snow, if you will, and the snowball effect that's kind of led to, you know, the protests and where we're at now with really questioning everything. I think that he, you know, played a big role in that. That was a very big story, and that we all kind of watched evolve, you know.
Uh, As an artist, and I'm going to ask you this question. This question can be for people that's trying to be a rapper, MC. Now, when you have artists like Dead Prez, Immortal Technique, KRS-One, um, the list goes on and on and on. How do you feel about the artists that say, you know what, I want to stay independent because I don't want nobody to filter my mouth and I want to be able to speak about political issues? Then you have other artists that actually sign. Don't get me wrong, they are speaking out. But you know, the label will allow them only say, you know, what they want them to say. Do you feel, is it better for an artist, upcoming artist, to go independent, you know, and really, you know, control your masters and everything else, or maybe even get the push from a major record label, but at the same time, though, your masters most likely will be controlled, will be theirs, and at the same time, though, you might not be able to put out, and excuse me, I'm not gonna say put out, say exactly what you want to say on record or off record.
Um, I think that, you know, we're getting to a point where the way that technology's evolved and the music industry is like, especially labels and the large machines are playing catch up, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And there's a lot more room to be independent and, you know, still do crazy numbers, do millions of streams and all these things independently, right? But also, ultimately, at the end of the day, I think a lot of, you know, labels and things like, ultimately it might not matter what you say if it sells, right?
Yeah.
So, but in a lot of ways the machine can control what is put on the biggest platforms, and then like how we are talking about things being self-manifesting. So if all we're hearing for the most part on the radio and all these things is a certain sound that um you know, isn't in line with the Dead President moral techniques, more turn up or whatever, then it becomes harder to inject that message into that mold. Um, but if that was the norm and that was selling, ultimately it's all about a bottom line with, I think, a lot of these companies. And a lot of the reason that they might quell certain messages and shit is because they think it's not going to sell. Where's the look at what's on the top charts? You know what I mean? How is this message about inequality or whatever the message might be going to sell when all these top 40 hits are bubblegum or whatever you want to call it. That being said, I think there is a place for everything, and a lot of you know music that, like, let's just take an example, Migos or anything, right? I love Migos, and there's a place for it. And also, if you get into other examples of like, oh, well, like, these artists are perpetuating violence and well, we have to also take a look at like these are reflections of our society and the things that are created. Like, there's deeper issues with even within these within these violent records, or what some people might say is like, this is promoting black on black violence, or this is doing that, like, and sort of vilifying a certain genre. But we also can look at it as is like, this is also a reflection of economic inequality, and giving it context of where they're from, lifestyles, the economic inequality, and less access to certain opportunities. Like, this is a message in a way, so I don't think that everything has to be preaching a message for it to have one. And there's room for everything in music. That being said, to get to your question, like, just directly, I ultimately think if it sells, they run it. Like, they don't care if you're preaching against them, talking about fuck the label, if they're getting a check at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I feel like it was someone who was it, like Michael Moore or someone, which whatever, however you might feel or I might feel about him. There, he was questioned in an interview, like, your movies are coming out on this platform or whatever. Like, if it's speaking out against the system, why would they ever put it out? And he's like, because it sells. Ultimately, they don't care. They don't care what the message is if it sells, because ultimately there's more power in economics, and it doesn't matter what people are thinking. It matter a lot of times. It matters where they're spending. So I don't know. I think it is a self-fulfilling prophecy in music of, it's hard to put very political music out mainstream, because that's not what people are used to hearing, and therefore it's not going to generate as much money, and that might be more of the motivation of someone in a label to not want to promote it because their bottom line is to get paid.
Yeah, you're right. The power of the dollar. At the end of the day, there's people have been using their platforms lately, as far as this saying things like Meek Mill was free, coming out songs like that, talking about his judge on championships. So he didn't care. He knew that song. Hold on, you talking about me? But he said, I'm gonna let it be known. So no, I agree. They looking like, long as it sells, we want our money. We don't care about that. So you're 100% right. Now,
Yeah, you could talk about the prison military industrial complex that becomes the number one hit on our label, and we're under Viacom. We're just going to be funding privatized prisons and the whole structure anyways. So it's the power of a dollar over everything, and economics,
yep,
economic power ultimately.
yep, exactly. We already talked about basketball, but as far as sports, do you watch boxing, MMA? Any favorite fighters right now?
Like off and on. Like I'll catch it randomly. And I've gone through little phases of like watching boxing and a little bit of MMA here and there. Like, what I'll do is I tune in and I'll watch a lot of like the 24/7s
Okay.
and documentaries that fighters put out normally in preparation for a battle. Like, it's like the motivation of like, all right, I need to get on my shit. I need to go running. I need to go do this and like train physically as well as mentally for a battle. But I'm not super tuned into that world in general. I
Okay.
would I would sound like a fool coming in and trying to debate of who would be who in a fight, or even like have too in depth of a conversation about MMA or boxing, to be honest.
No, no, that's cool. That's cool. What about Marvel DC?
Ooh. Yeah, like funny, like Chase, my dude Chase Moore, my producer and only one are like huge on that. And I'll be like in conversations in the periphery, like, what about Goku or something random like that? I'm like, Goku versus Superman. Who's winning? And we've had like random debates as far as like, you know, superheroes. I know Goku is a Marvel DC by the or DC by the way. But I'm like I've I'm very like surface layer with Marvel as well. But I've seen like all the you know, Avengers and you know, even from like Iron Man, like the film franchise, like really kind of starting with Iron Man in a lot of
Hmm.
ways. I think I've watched most of the movies. Beyond that, like get into comics and everything, I'm like, put me on game, you know.
Okay, okay,
Are
okay.
you are you big on Marvel
Oh
DC?
yes, yes, yes. I'm big on Marvel.
You have a
I got
preference?
my Black Panther
There we
figure
go.
up there.
That's
Yeah,
fire.
yeah. I got a Black Panther. I matter of fact, I gotta get it for a second. Break it down.
That's fire.
Heck yeah. So I got that. Whatever. I got some comics. Let me see.
Stan Lee is such a G, man. Black Panther. I was in the 60s, I think, when the first Black Panther comic came out. I read something about that. You know, it's
Yeah,
like turning that into a superhero. That's so dope.
yeah. It came out in the '60s. Whatever. Some of the comics I collect. This is my comic right here. My own comic, whatever. Kofi. So
What?
yeah,
That's
I got my
sick.
own
That's
comic.
amazing. That's so tight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Uh,
gotta somewhere I somewhere I have a Spawn comic signed by Todd McFarlane. I
oh,
just
for
remember,
real?
yeah, when I was super young, uh I don't know. I must have been like 8 or something like that. I had like a little brief comic phase, and I went to my grandpa took me to the convention center, and I met like stood in line and got my comic. I loved Spawn at the time, and I got my comic signed by him. I don't know where it's at though. I'd have to like dig around.
Okay, okay. We only got a couple of questions left for you just to let you know.
Mhm.
So, upcoming projects, features, people should look out for us so we can be, anticipating that type of music, especially on this channel.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm dropping summer. Like I dropped spring at the end of spring, you know,
Okay.
it kind of happened that way. Just with schedule and you know, finishing sort of last minute. And so now the seasons are because I'm doing of course all the seasons or whatever. So every few months I'm putting out a new project. So the next one's summer and it's gonna probably come at the end of summer, looking like September.
Okay.
And then obviously fall. I'm not sure if I'm gonna call it fall or autumn yet. We'll figure that out. But then winter. So those 4 projects will be dropping, you know, at the respective end of each one of their seasons. And I'm almost done with summer as of now. It might be a little bit shorter than spring, but I just dropped spring. Uh, it's the first solo project I've dropped since 2016, still
Mm.
standing. It's the last solo project I put out. But yeah, I'm super hyped on that. I'm gonna still continue to drop visuals and things around that, more raising the bars and studio freestyles. But definitely, if you haven't heard that, I would recommend people go listen to Spring first and foremost. It's Spring without an I. You know, ain't no I in Spring. It's SPRNG.
Okay.
Definitely go peep that. It's my favorite body of work I've ever put out for sure, and I think kind of showcases a lot of the evolution I've gone through in these last 4 years as an artist and moving from Portland to LA, living out here the last 4 years and really being in the studio a lot more and just honing up my sound, you know?
Okay. Okay. Where can they purchase or stream, your music at? So, people might want to go to. Do you have a website or just more all on music platforms?
Yeah, yeah, it's across all the platforms. I don't have my site up and running yet. That's something I'm working on, my site and merchandise. I also should probably put it on Bandcamp because a few people have hit me saying they don't have like don't go on the Spotify, Apple Music because it's on all the digital, you know, distribution platforms like Google Play, Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal. Um, my last album is on all of those platforms, but I think I'm gonna throw it up on Bandcamp as well, and website and merch coming soon.
Okay, okay, for sure. Everybody, please look out for that. We're gonna support him on this channel when that comes. I'll make sure at the end, people will see in the comment section and in the description. I'll have everything listed as far as the digital music platforms for you and your social media accounts at the end. Don't worry about
Oh
that.
yeah,
We got
appreciate that.
the upcoming projects coming. Now, top 5 rappers, MCs of all time, and why.
Not including myself. All right.
Okay.
All right. So take my name off those 5 spots. Number one for me is definitely Pac. For reasons I think we've talked about.
Mhm.
And it becomes so much harder from there. To me, it's just like it really depends on, like, are we just talking about all time, just music and influence, or we talking like the most lyrical, right? Like, I have different lists,
Yeah.
in my head. But if I were to just try to like combine and say just overall, I'd probably go Pac, Wayne, uh, Pac, Wayne, MJ. I don't know if this is in order too. This isn't in
Okay.
order. But Pac, M, Wayne, J, and EMX
Okay.
slash Big Pun. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I like that.
Slash Big L. Slash.
Yeah,
That's
just
all.
gotta
Yeah.
put them right there.
They're all in there. It's the top 8 that can be rearranged in whatever order except the top slot.
Okay. No problem. No problem. No problem. Now, um, is there any artists that maybe you haven't had a chance to work with yet that you would love to work with in the future?
Um, yeah, I mean, there's a ton of artists I'd love to work with at some point, from my own peers that I haven't got a chance to work with, all the way up to like the Lil Waynes, and even artists like Rodriguez, who's, his story is on the documentary. I think it's on Netflix, Searching for Sugarman,
Okay.
kind of in the lane of more like Bob Dylan-esque type writing and singing.
Mhm.
Who else? I mean, there's so many. I don't know. It's hard for me to think of at this point. But well, I'll go with those two. I think that's a good two to start with as far as fantasy collaborations. Drake, Kendrick,
Okay.
Wayne, Rodriguez, Dre, Dr. Dre,
Okay.
of course, like the kind of go-tos, Timbaland, that one, most rappers would name. I don't think I'd have too unique of a list in that regard.
Okay. Okay. I love that. I love that. I love
Most of it's producer based.
that. Uh huh. All right. Now, before we get ready to shut everything down in, is there anything you would like to say to your fans, to the people maybe the first time ever, watching this? We're gonna watch this interview, but they never knew who you were, but they like, wow, who was this person? This is your time to shine. Say whatever you want to say. The floor is yours.
I would just say, welcome. We've been expecting you, and just check the music out. I think it speaks for itself. You want to get to know me, I think the best thing is to tune into the music, and my YouTube. I drop. I think I'm gonna bring my podcast back. Meanwhile on Earth, I haven't done. Only did like 7 or 8 of those episodes. So ultimately just get to know me through the music. Holler at me on any of the socials, and we can chop it up.
Okay, okay, okay. Can you please give out your social media usernames for everybody?
Yeah, it should just be at Illmac TV on pretty much everything, on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube.com/Illmac TV. That's pretty much my default. I don't fuck with Fedbook, so don't search for me on there.
Well, everybody, you heard from him what he said. I'll make sure I'll put all the information in the description. So, and I'll pin it in the comment section also. But we just want to say, I want to say, and I speak for everybody on this channel that's going to watch this interview. I want to say thank you first and foremost for doing this interview. Number two, anytime you release some music, I would definitely, I have no problem doing reactions for you because I already done some reactions for you. So that's no problem showing my respect and loyalty what you've done for me. So anytime you want me to do a review or something, please let me know. The platform is always open for you to say anything you want to say on my channel. I just want to give you that just to let you know.
Yo, I really appreciate that for real. I appreciate you reaching out, and I'll definitely take you up on that and try to give you a heads up. I have a terrible memory, but that's really dope that you would even offer that, and I'll reach out with material that's coming out and chop it up with you, man. Thank you.
Okay, no doubt. Everybody, you heard what he said, and like I said, I keep my word because the other artists on my channel that came on, I definitely did reviews, reactions, not just for them because I was doing it before they came on the channel, but I continue that process because my thing is to support a person like you. I want to see you get 50 million views. Let's speak that into existence. I want to see you get, generate more subs, followers. Hold on. Okay, I'm sorry. More subs, followers. Yeah, pause for a second. More subs, followers. That's what I care about because, like I said, it's just letting people know this side of you because a lot of people, they will support you. They love your music. Now, this is a chance for them. So, everybody, we want to thank Illmac for coming by, taking time out from his day. He can get back to maybe playing Call of Duty, maybe writing some lines.
I might squeeze a couple games in before the studio today for sure.
Yeah. But just want to say till next time, everybody, salute.
Whoa.